I will start, may as well get started now. So welcome to this session. Almost everything you ever want to know about drones, but we're afraid to ask. One of the things I've done is the chat room is open. So if you have questions, feel free to drop those into the chat and I'll try and keep up with those and answer those as we go along. If not, I will try and leave time at the end for any questions that you might have that I didn't answer, or any questions that you might have that you just want more explanation on that I have for you. The intent here is not to make you a drone pilot, but to at least familiarize you with drones and what they are and how they work. By way of introduction, I'm Dr. Eugene Matthews. I teach here at Park University. My primary role is criminal justice, but my secondary role is in drones. We have a drone certificate, drone application certificate that we provide here at Park. And so if you're interested in that, there'll be some information at the end of the presentation for anybody who might want a little bit more information. This first slide that you see up here is really something I'll touch on very, very briefly at the very end. It's just estimating wind speed using something as simple as a flag. Now, there's a lot of caveats to that, obviously. The size of the flag, the construction of the flag, what the materials are, the location, etc. But this is a nice gauge. Now, this will be more important to folks who either fly drones or fixed wing aircraft or are hobbyists. So with that, let us go. My first question is, when you hear the term drones, what comes to mind? Is it something like this? Well, these are indeed drones. Now, the one on the far left of your screen is a dragonfly, and it is quite small. It's used in special operations and a number of other things, but it is a drone, and its primary role is in surveillance. There's a tiny camera on it. It looks like a miniature helicopter, and the imagery goes back to something akin to an iPad that's strapped to the forearm of the operator. But generally speaking, most people, when they hear the word drones, they think of some of these big monsters up here at the top. They're shooting missiles, they're doing surveillance, and etc. And again, those are drones, but those aren't the drones we're looking at. Here's a quick view from above. Hopefully you'll be able to hear the music. A shameless plug for Park University. I took this shot just the other day, and this is my favorite shot. I call it the reveal. All these are shot with the same drone, which makes it kind of useful. This isn't something you do with a kite or an airplane. So those are the types of things that you can expect to see from your drone. These are the types of drones that we train with. Now, and I'll explain these a little bit more in just a second, but up at the top right are what most people look at with regard to or think about with drones. It's a toy. It's a teeny tiny toy that flies around and usually annoys people, looks and sounds like a bug. But I want to explain to you some other uses for drones and how you could use them in maybe your business or in business or other occupations if you're doing that. To begin with, we have what I think of as the micro drone. Now, this is typically just a few dollars. You can get these at any of the big box stores. I would recommend that you not pay $49 for them. There are a lot of sites that you can go to that will advertise something like this, but when they blow it up into a big picture, it'll look like it's a magnificently huge drone. It looks huge, and it'll give you all this fake stuff about how it goes underwater and does some other things. And then lo and behold, you'll find out that no, it's just a micro drone. It is truly a toy. One of the good things is if you learn how to fly this well and not crash, you can fly pretty much anything. The next one is what's considered a sub 250-gram drone. So this is less than half a pound. And that 250 grams is important from the perspective of what the Federal Aviation Administration was doing years before. So if any drone that was over 250 grams or over half a pound had to be registered, it had to have a lot of caveats. And so the manufacturers of drones said, hey, well, we'll just go down by 10 grams, and then we can skirt that requirement. Didn't work too long because the Federal Aviation Administration just updated it and changed that to say any drone has to be registered. So that was kind of a waste of time, but they're teeny tiny, and these are some of the drones that we have used. The DJI Air series, and again, I'm not promoting any particular drone one over the other, I'm just showing you some of the things that we've used, is a standard drone. There's a lot of them that are out there. You have the Air, you have the Air 1, the Air 2, the Air S, etc. These are foldable drones. They're small, they're compact, and they will get the job done. But again, it's just a little bit higher than or stronger than a hobbyist drone that you might see. Next is the DJI Mavic series, and there's a slew of them. Now, in my opinion, this Mavic 2 Zoom was probably the best drone made by DJI back years before. It has a superb camera. It does a lot of different things, and I think of it as a workhorse. It'll run into trees and still fly. I can actually attest to that. Once you replace the helicopter, the rotors, you're usually in pretty good shape. And then finally, the Autel Evo 2. And we're hoping to get another version of the Autel Evo soon that allows us to do some other things. If you're going to break these down into two different categories, I would say these on the right are the consumer grade drones. They're great for hobbyists. They're great for flying. They're fine for doing some taking some adequate photos. But you got to remember that the camera on there, and I'll talk about that when we talk about payload, is small. And so you're not going to get quite the detail that you might get with something else like a prosumer grade drone. If you are in the business, or if your business or organization uses drones, this or higher are the types of drones that you'll probably want to go with. They cost a little more, but they do a little bit more, and they are also quite worthwhile. So let's get into some and break down some of the terminology. UA, or uncrewed, the FAA is finally catching up and trying to move from unmanned and make it gender neutral to go to uncrewed. Hasn't quite taken yet, but it's on the way. Uncrewed aerial vehicles, commonly known as a drone, anything that is flown without a human pilot on board. Now, you've seen the size of these drones, so getting on board of them, on top of them, is not probably going to do very much for you. The UAS, or uncrewed aircraft system, is just talking about the entire system put together itself. And then the SUAS is a small uncrewed aircraft. Usually, again, below I have a misprint here. It's less than, more than half a pound, less than 55 pounds. So ignore the 250 gram thing. These are some of the type of configurations that you might have seen drones with, but typically speaking, they have 4 or more rotors. You might have the tricopter. The quadcopter is what we're using. They have the quintcopter, 5 rotors. Of course, the hexacopter, which you'll see on the larger platforms, and even the octocopter, which is kind of amazing. The reason why I put that this is a distinction without a difference is simply because it's just a drone. Most of them fly off of the same type of platform. They have the same sorts of payloads. They have the same limitations and capabilities, which makes them pretty useful in a lot of different situations. Now, one of the most common questions that I get is, When I get a drone, or people who have drones, are they spying on me? Are they looking into my window? Are they going to fly over my house, etc.? So I took some time the other day and put together a short little video to kind of to sort of debunk that particular myth. So this is my house. You can see on the left, this is my drone. It's looking into my window. And as you'll note, there's this stark reflection. On the right is me running around with my phone to run out the back door, come around to the side, and prove to you that it's my drone flying at my house, looking into my window. And oh, by the way, no, you can't see anything. No matter, I'm really close to the house with my drone, which also isn't advised. But when you're looking in the window, all you see is a reflection. So then I thought, hey, maybe it's the size of the window. So I went to the patio door. That's me slamming the door. And you can see, if you look closely, you can see a bare image of me in the background. But again, that's my drone flying, looking at me, flying very poorly, looking at me. You can't see through. You can just barely see an imagery. So the question of, are drones out there spying on me? The answer is no. One, it can't do that. And two, truly, we're not that interesting. Should you see a drone out there flying or whatnot, oftentimes it's just lost. And sometimes it's, I don't know, it's probably your kid or somebody else's kid with a drone trying to annoy you. Drones truly are a force multiplier. These are just some of the types of drones and some of the types of uses that you may be familiar with or have heard about drones and their use. This one on the very bottom right-hand side, the fixed wing hybrid VTOL, vertical takeoff and lift, it's one of those types of drones that's used in Wingterra to do deliveries. And they've been working with this in places like, I think, Seattle, some places in maybe Utah for long range drop off. Now, at the height of the pandemic, this was really kind of the go-to. They were thinking, hey, we can deliver your Starbucks. We can bring it to you from wherever. It'll drop down on the string. You can collect it up. And it makes things very simple, touchless delivery. Some other things, and we'll talk about those in just a few moments, are places that drones are being used to for the last mile. UPS is considering that. They've been working on it for a little while. You can get a UPS or a delivery truck out to a rural area. Out comes a drone. It takes the package out to, a mile or two away. There's some caveats with that. Obviously, there's some limitations, but that's one of the things that's on the horizon. Up at the top, you can see a very tiny list of different applications for drones as a force multiplier, including delivering first aid in places in Africa where you can't get medical equipment or medical resources or supplies across the desert very quickly. They have some drones that actually do that. They fly very quickly. They fly very high. They're outside of the range of most animals, and so they can drop off blood or other types of medical equipment, and they do that quite well. One of the things that I use the drone for, personally, is for things like roof inspections. And so I have a short video here of, again, shameless plug on Park, roof inspections. A flat roof, what does it look like from the top? This is Holly Hall, my building. Happy to see that it's not leaking. No problems here. This is another building, and actually that HVAC system is in good shape. It looks rusty. Here are some tiles, and you can see that there's some damage that needs to be taken care of. And of course, the ubiquitous solar panels. So a number of different applications you can use your drone for, or a drone for, and one of them is take a look at your roof. Rather than walk on the roof and see if the gutters are full, send up a drone. Send in the drones. Send up a drone. And in just a couple of minutes, you can find out, yes, your gutters are not clogged or cluttered, so you don't have to walk the roof. And then if you have tiled roofs or other roofs that have fragile roofing material like slate or wood shingles or something, rather than spend the money or spend the time and maybe create more damage doing an assessment, you can send in the drone. Another common use for drones is bridge inspections. And this is, well, it has a lot of utility, but this is a very quick video on bridge inspections.
Gates to the bike path on both sides of the bridge are locked down. This under-bridge inspection truck takes up the entire width of the bike path.
Why is it being closed for 3 weeks, or why is it being closed midday?
2 workers trapped inside the bucket of a snooper truck that tipped over on the Sakonnet River Bridge Monday. The Turnpike and Bridge Authority has suspended the use of all snooper trucks until an investigation is complete.
Again, I'm not promoting any particular drone. This is kind of cool. This drone is flying autonomously. We'll talk about LiDAR in just a couple minutes, but it's mapping as it goes, so it keeps from running into things and then becoming a paperweight. You can get in close, take some photos, take some videos, use full control. Again, lots of options for drones and drone use in the construction and in the energy industry, as well as in transportation. This is perhaps one of my favorite clips. We went and actually saw this movie, and it was very good. Again, I'm not promoting the movie as a great movie. It is a great movie, you should see it. But one of the things that they pulled out of here was the drone imagery. And I thought this is just absolutely appropriate and on time. What else you can do with your drone?
Here we go! Ready! And fire!
Michael Bay drives towards the energy of a scene.
You are all gonna have the greatest story to tell at the end of the night.
He's trying to move with what feels alive.
Bring it low, then start to go up.
Michael was getting different shots that he would usually never shoot, so it gave it a very different style.
I've done 9 movies with Michael, and one of my first jobs on every movie is what's the newest, coolest gear out there. So on this movie, it's called FPV.
3, 2, 1, and action.
Michael gives us very concise direction.
You understand what I'm saying? Because you're watching on a tight lens here. If you hold 2 more seconds on a movie screen, it needs a more. Yeah.
But he gives us the ability to be creative.
My name is Alex Vanover, and I'm a drone pilot on this movie, Ambulance, for Michael Bay.
Best pilot we know over here.
When I'm flying the drone, I'm acting like Superman in a way, where I'm trying to get these really unique angles and shots. I fly what's called an FPV drone, and FPV stands for first-person view. So we wear a set of goggles on our face, and when I'm flying the drone, I'm actually flying with a VR headset, and I'm able to see exactly what the drone sees in real time. So it's a whole new arena for flying and allows us to fly in really crazy locations and get some really awesome shots you can't really get with any other camera or drone.
Oh, look at that. Oh, white.
Go, 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 go!
You have to watch it on the big screen. The way that it was shot, that experience is just magical.
Lock everything down. Nothing gets out.
It belongs in the theater, and I cannot wait for it to be in the theater.
This is definitely one where people will enjoy going on that ride for 2 hours. Hopefully they'll leave the theater sweating.
We don't get to walk off into the sunset!
A Michael Bay film. Again, not promoting the film, but yes, it's worth seeing. One of those scenes, though, when you saw the drone going underneath a car coming up and over, it was a one-time shot. The pilot, who was very humble, he's actually a 4-time drone race world champion, drone racer. He didn't get any practice with that. It was, you're going to fly this, and I think that's a $35,000 drone with ever how much the camera is, underneath this vehicle that's exploding off of a ramp one time, because it's not like a redo. So if you're into action videos or action films, FPV is something that you might be very interested in. You also notice one of the other pieces, that drone going straight up and then coming straight down. FPV flyers are able to do that because that's a different configuration for a drone. It flies fast, it flies really crazy sometimes, but it's quite enjoyable if that's something that you enjoy. For most, drones are broken into two categories. You're either recreational hobbyist or commercial drone pilot. I want to break those down, and this is probably the most wordy slide that I have. Recreational pilots might be flying FPV. One of the big deals is that you have to keep your drone in VLOS, or visual line of sight, at all times. You can't interfere with any manned aircraft. That's for all drones. And then you can read the rest of those things that are important. One of the big things, and I've highlighted there, is number one, you're flying for recreational purposes only. On the other hand, if you're a commercial drone pilot, you've got your Part 107, then you can fly and get paid for it. Now, the remuneration need not be money. It could be tickets to the theater or anything else of value. If you're receiving that in payment or in response to your drone video or your drone footage or whatnot, then you are supposed to be flying as a commercial drone pilot. I have a number of case studies that I share in our courses where people didn't do that. Realtors had their cousin, niece, nephew, or somebody else fly the drone and take pictures of the real estate and then put it up on the MLS. And then somebody else, usually another realtor, notified the FAA. The FAA came in and then charged them. So the realtor or the drone pilot was charged because he or she didn't have a Part 107 license. They were only charged $1,100, which is still substantial. The realtor, on the other hand, was charged $1,100 per image. So that got to be quite costly. And the FAA, there's not really a whole lot of wiggle room there. You did it. There's a thing called, in this photo, you can't see it, it's invisible, but it's X-field data. The X-field data allows anybody who has access to that image, if it was uploaded in that manner, to go backwards and find out where and when the image was taken, what the camera was that it was taken. So the where and when is the longitude and latitude of the location, and then the time frame. So it's easy to track back where that image was taken. And in this case, it was a realtor, so they put it on their site. So they just make the phone calls, and then, yeah, bad things happen. Easiest thing, and this is the pro tip, go get your license. The license, if you're going to get a drone pilot's license or remote pilot license, it's a short test. The test is only 60 questions. It's about 2 hours long. It covers a spectrum of things. But once you get it, it's about $170. You take it at the local, usually a local airport has that capability. But once you get it, then you're good. Every 2 years, you have to update that and retake a test or a portion of the test so that you can remain licensed. With that said, what I want to share with you now, pro tip, is how you can not have to take the test and still be able to fly your drone legally. Now, you can't take pictures and sell them, but you can do the rest of the stuff. The FAA created or developed in partnership with a number of entities, to include Embry-Riddle, the Boy Scouts of America, several other drone companies, the TRUST, or the Recreational UAS Safety Test. It's 100% free, but once you've done it and completed it, then you get a certificate. I have on the screen now a QR code. If you have a mobile device and you're not on a mobile device, you can scan the QR code and it'll take you to the FAA website where you can find one of those 18 different organizations and then take go through the training and then take the test. It covers all the basic stuff you need to know in order to fly recreationally, legally, and safely. And again, once you've taken the exam, you will get a certificate printed out. Print out 2 copies. 1 copy should stay with your drone. 1 copy should stay in your pocket, so that when you're stopped, or if you're stopped by law enforcement or somebody else, do you have a license, or are you certified or legally flying in the areas that you are? You'll have that for yourself. All right. So if nobody else is needing to take a scan of that, I will move on. Very cool. So these are some of the recreational types of drones that you might see out there. Now, in the top middle is a FPV flyer. We have folks in our drone club. Actually, the president of our drone club actually makes FPV flyers. He's very much into drones, and so he creates his own, makes them from scratch, and they fly quite well. On the front, what you see is pretty much just engine and camera. All the other mechanisms that keep it flowing left to right and whatnot are just pieces that come into the FPV first-person viewer flyer itself. But again, flies fast, flies wickedly interesting, upside down, doing loops, things that the other prosumer drones typically don't do. So again, if that's something that interests you, then by all means, look at the FPV flyer. The big takeaway is right here in the middle. Recreational or hobbyist drones only fly for fun, not for work. If you take nothing else away, and I hope that you do, just know that it'll keep yourself out of a lot of trouble and avoid some unnecessary heartache. On the other hand, commercial drone pilots, they can fly both for recreation and for work. And there's a number of different applications. We'll dive into these just a little bit in just a second. But the ones that I wanted to point out to you here are energy inspection. So back in the background, you can see that there's wind turbines, not windmills, wind turbines, and you have a drone that actually goes up and inspects those. Take a look at what the wind turbine is doing, if there's any issues with it. And then over here on the right of that, you see a thermal imagery, and I'll unpack that in just a little bit. And then, of course, bracketed, bookended on both ends, you see law enforcement's applications for drones. This drone here is a Mavic Pro, and it has a addition that was put onto it. Didn't come with the drone initially. So down here you see a FLIR camera for looking infrared, which gives you some changes, or give you some opportunities to look at the world in kind of a different light. Thermal really is a game changer. Thermal cameras, they were originally developed for use by the military, for military operations, and today they're used widely for building inspections, moisture insulation, roofing, those types of things, firefighting, autonomous vehicles, and we'll talk a little bit about LiDARs in just a second. Number one question, can they see through walls? The answer is no. They can't see through walls. They can see and they gauge what the temperature is on the outside, but they can see through smoke. If you have an individual and the door's open and they're inside, the drone, or the camera rather, is actually looking at the heat that's coming off of the individual. Now, one of the differences or caveats or changes is the drone, the thermal camera is actually not looking at people, it's looking at the heat sources. So if the heat source is higher than or less than the surrounding area, then it will show up. If it's the exact same, then you may not see that, depending on the quality of the camera itself, and it might just blend in. You'll note here in this top version, or this top portion, people's clothing also hinders the type of imagery that you're going to get. So if somebody's fully clothed, you'll only see the imagery that's heat that's coming off that's in an exposed area. So can it see through walls? No. It can see through smoke, and it can see through open areas. This is only one type of a camera, and actually that's actually a spotlight, not the actual camera, but you get the idea. Again, the spotlight camera, talk a little bit about drone payloads. So the drone payload is actually anything that's either hanging onto or put on top of the drone. Has a lot of different uses, as we mentioned before, with regard to thermal. And one of the other uses is up here. You can see in Alaska, this is actually, that picture get cut off. This is actually a life preserver, and it's an inflatable life preserver. And they were working with this for people who were swimming and they get caught in the riptide. You can send a drone out faster than you can send out a skidoo, or faster than you can send out a boat, and faster than you can send out a lifeguard. You can send out a drone, it drops this inflatable. You'll see that there's a string right here, or a detachable line here, drops this inflatable right towards the person, hits the water, it inflates, and now lives are saved. This is one of the other, I guess, magnificent uses for drones. Over here, you also see package delivery. Again, they're being experimented with quite a bit. Although this is a DJI, I think this is a Mavic 2, that package makes it look like it's huge. It's not. The package is actually small. The drones, even though they're quadcopter, they don't have that great a lifting capacity. It's not like in, there was a show we were watching, MacGyver, the newer version, and somebody was hanging onto a drone and flying along with it. Yeah, great entertainment, bad science. Doesn't quite work like that. And then, of course, other package delivery. Along with this, and I'm looking here at the imagery, this thermal imagery has been used, again, initially developed for the military use, but then it's been kind of captured for other uses. National Ocean, NOAA, National Ocean something Society, whomever they are, work with the ocean. They developed LiDAR, or they developed uses for something called LiDAR, which is light detection and ranging. Now, before they did it, somebody who has an automated car developed this. All it does, or what it does, is it sends out like a bat signal, much like a bat might do. Sends out this signal, this ranging signal, which comes back and identifies the obstructions that are in the area. For vehicles, or at least for autonomous vehicles, this is a great way for the vehicle to drive and not run into things. So if you have a fairly new car, you may have that lane assist. It lets you know that you're swerving out of your lane, and it'll start rattling your steering wheel if you let go of it. It's not, they are used maybe not as widely as they could be, but in some degree. But anyway, the LiDAR gives the camera, gives the vehicle this overarching look at what's in front of them, what's behind them, and what's left or right. LiDAR also is used for topography and bathysphere. So this drone up at the top is a BPOP drone. It flies very high. It's, again, autonomous. It's made of a styrofoam type of material, but it'll fly for hours, or close to an hour, or maybe sometimes a little longer. And it takes topographical imagery of systems. It has a really good camera that's on there, very powerful camera. And with LiDAR, you can look at the erosion, soil erosion, or beach erosion, or things of that nature, as well as what's going on with regard to the ground below you. You also have drones that are used for agricultural spraying. This was something that was used for agriculture initially, and then when the pandemic hit, they actually used these types of drones and used those to spray and disinfect, or at least spray stadiums and other large open area seatings, because you can do that with a drone in a matter of just a few minutes, as opposed to a person standing with the sprayer trying to get. There's a lot of other applications within this, within the sprayer, that can be used and applied pretty successfully as well. Let me return to the field expedient anemometer, kind of hard to say. You can get one of those. They're pretty inexpensive. It'll tell you what the wind speed is. One of the big deals is that the speed of wind on the ground is slower than the speed of the wind up in the air. Now, the maximum height that you can fly a drone typically is 400 feet. And that's AGL, above ground level, not MSL, means sea level. So 400 feet from the ground up into the skies where the FAA has allowed you to fly your drone, or allow drones to fly. When you're at a building, you can go up to 400 feet above that building. So if the building happens to be 400 feet tall, you're legally allowed to fly there, you can go up to 400 feet above that building. That still keeps you out of the national airspace where most crewed air traffic is flying. The reason for the flying is when you're on the ground, if you don't have an anemometer, you can estimate how fast the wind is going or what the wind speed is. With that limitation, you would know or have an idea of what drone you could use, or maybe what the limits are for your particular drone. Now, throughout this presentation, I've demonstrated, or at least shown, a number of different drones. This is perhaps one of the more commonly seen drones. This is on the same thread as the DJI P4 or P2, which I'm losing the term for the P, but these are the types of drones that most people see, that has a really good, powerful camera that's on there. But it's also very Phantom 4, but it's also got a very limited use and applicability. The camera is great and you can take great pictures, but beyond that, not a whole lot. But if all you're doing is taking pictures, whether that's going to be for 3D modeling or for mapping or for something else, then this is probably going to be the ideal drone for you. Again, drones, UAS or SUAS, less than 55 pounds. And here's where we get to one last piece of terminology. Up here on the left, you see VLOS, that's visual line of sight, where you're required to keep your drone within visual line of sight. Now, as you notice, these drones are not that big. So you have a tiny drone that's black and white, and you put it up in the air at about 100 feet, and you will lose it in a heartbeat, even on a clear day. Now, on a cloudy day, you may have a chance of spotting it further out, but the rule is you have to keep it within visual line of sight, and you can't fly more than 3 statute miles away. Now, I don't know about you, but my eyes aren't that good that I can see 3 statute miles away this teeny tiny 250-gram drone. I have a bright orange drone, that's the Autel Evo, and about less than half a mile away, it becomes just a teeny tiny dot. And I only know it's there because I'm moving it. This is also unaided. You can't use binoculars or other types of vision enhancing material in order to see the drone. VLOS. BVLOS, beyond visual line of sight, is what UPS and some of the other major drone operations are starting to use or trying to get into, to include the railroads. So they can do railroad inspections. They can start at point A and then fly all the way down the track without having somebody have to see that, because railroad tracks are pretty long. What you can do is add in a visual observer along the way. Now, there's other drone applications that allow me to take off here at Parkville, fly it towards someplace like Gladstone, and someone else to take over from Gladstone. If there's a visual observer between me and the drone, that other individual with the other controller can then take it over from Gladstone or someplace else and then fly it towards Kansas City. And in that way, you're maintaining visual line of sight. You don't have to skirt the BVLOS, beyond visual line of sight, and you can maintain, or you can fly legally. It's a little bit more expensive drone, and you still have the same limitations that you would have with any other type of drone. You're still only flying for probably 45 minutes. Granted, you can go a long way in 45 minutes when you're flying 42 miles an hour and there's nothing in your way, but still 45 minutes. Over here on the left, I'm just demonstrating some of the things that the drone pilot, the remote pilot who has her certificate, has to learn, has to know, and be able to articulate in the exam. This is weather, portions of weather patterns, the cumulus clouds and the cloud formations, the stages of the thunderstorm, very detailed, and also kind of handy. So you're out and about and you can see the storms, the clouds forming. You can know that, hey, that's a cumulus cloud. Fun fact, but that's about it. Places you can't fly, like the Statue of Liberty, unless you have some special authorization. It's called Lance authorization. And then you have to have FAA permission. And some other things that drones are being used for to include security of installations, other places that you can't fly, over prisons, over law enforcement agencies, their police stations, sheriff's offices, etc., over stadiums or other people gatherings to include parades, unless, again, you have special permission from the FAA. One of the things that will get you the special permission is the configuration of your drone. So when the Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl, not too very long ago, there was an opportunity for drones to fly over the parade. The way that they were able to do that was because of the configuration of the drone itself, and it had a parachute on the top of the drone. In the event that the rotors fall off or something bad happens, the parachute would instantly deploy, and then the drone would gently drop to the ground. Not so much gently. It's still a very heavy drone. It's going to hit somebody and hurt. But still, the idea was you've got a parachute, so you can at least see it coming down and then move out of the way. That's one of the protections, or one of the safety features that allows those who are flying over stadiums or permission to fly over stadiums or gathered crowds can do. All right. Some don'ts. Drones are not typically made for water. There is a drone that was developed not too very long ago, and it is actually made for water. It'll fly on top of the water, it'll fly under the water, or navigate under the water. I don't know the specifications of how deep it'll go, but it's this drone that you see over the far left, and it has on it, or in it, it's all self-contained, so it'll actually float if it drops into the water. It's not an inexpensive proposition, and the reviews that I've seen on it don't really share a lot of positive things with regard to the imagery that you can get flying underwater. In all other aspects, it's nice, but typically drones aren't boats. They're not submarines. They're not supposed to be in the water. If they get in the water, that's usually a bad day. Next, you'll see the FPV flyer, which is very typical. One of the things that every drone that most of the prosumer and consumer drones have on it is a camera that allows you to get telemetry. So the telemetry is what you see on the controller itself, how far you are, how fast you're flying, how high you are, what's under you. And then it has something called, in many cases, obstacle avoidance. That's again, a bat radar that keeps you, or helps prevent you from running into walls or having those mean and nasty trees reach out and grab your drone and throw it under the ground. You can fly legally 30 minutes before sunset and 30 minutes prior to sunrise. Those are the golden hours, and the FAA said that is permissible. Again, flying within an area that you're allowed to fly into, as well as flying during that time frame. Over here is just a cool shot of one of the many cool shots that you can get with a drone. A little different than you might see other places. All right, last thing. Where do you start? Let's say you're interested in getting your own drone. First question I would suggest that you ask yourself is, are you going to fly for business or pleasure? If you're just flying for fun and you have no intentions of ever selling your photographs or posting them somewhere where you're going to get compensated, then you can fly and buy probably an inexpensive drone. Oh, by the way, there was an individual who was just flying for that reason. They had a pretty decent drone. They took some really great shots. They put it up on YouTube, had some videos there. And then unfortunately, it was so popular, they started getting hits. And as a result, YouTube paid them money, but they didn't have a license. So the FAA, out of kindness more than anything else, notified them and said, hey, you need to get a license because you are making money. Yes, it's only $1.50, but it doesn't matter. You're making money, so you are a commercial drone pilot. The individual took down their site, or took down their area where they had their YouTube, went and got the license, and then came back and put it up there. So if you don't think that you're going to use it for business, it's always useful to get the drone certifications. Where are you going to drone? There are some places that you can't drone. You already know this just starting off. Third thing, how much are you willing to pay? I will share with you that if you buy new, you're in much better condition than if you buy used. You have no idea when you buy a used drone how many times it has fallen out of the air, or one of those mean old trees snatched it and threw it onto the ground. So you should consider buying new. And then your price range will range anywhere from about $400 for a pretty decent drone in the DJI series to as much as your wallet can handle for something a little bit more robust. And then lastly, what is your skill level? You can find a lot of information on how to fly a drone and how not to fly a drone on YouTube. It's free, it's available, it's simple, and it really behooves you to take a few minutes and watch what to do or what not to do. There's a lot of different training that's available to you, a lot of practice sessions that you can get into and play with. And that's really what my goal or key or focus is in the trainings that we do. We focus on teaching our students how to fly and not crash. So there you are. This is me, who I am, what I've done. What questions do you have for me that I can answer for you in the few minutes that we have left?